Hey everyone, it's Michael Goosebumps fan. Today I have another classic 62 book 1990s era Goosebumps book review to do for you, because this one was really solid. It was, ironically, solid because of the title. Goosebumps, I don't know the number because this is my old copy that I was given when I was a kid for like the skating rink birthday party for everybody who's been familiar with my channel. It's one of the things I talked about. One of the books that I got on that particular party. It was when I first really got into Goosebumps. I think I was a little bit less than 10, maybe 8 or 9, somewhere in there. Anyway, let's get Invisible. I love this cover. It's Tim Jacobus' old artwork. Of course, this is a reissue from like 2003, 4, or 5, somewhere in there. I hate the new reissue cover. As much as I love this book, I don't think I'll ever collect that reissue cover because the reissue cover, the newer reissue cover, is so terrible. This reissue looks fantastic. It's the same art as the original book. I love it. I think it is fantastic. This is a fantastic example of a Goosebumps book that I went into knowing nothing. I know a lot of people get books and they read the little synopsis thing on the back. I don't recommend doing that because you can get a big surprise with a lot of Goosebumps books for not doing that. A lot of rewards out there for books that you don't really know what they're about. You don't kind of prioritize one over another, and then you read all the good stuff, and then you don't have anything but bad to read at one point when you've read all the great stuff you wanted to read. This one really surprised me. I'm really surprised, honestly. Maybe it's because of the TV episode, but I don't really understand why people don't talk about Let's Get Invisible more. I haven't seen the TV episode ever. I may or may not own it. I'm going to try to watch it tonight and do a review. I don't know. But this story, this book, was fantastic. I really enjoyed it a lot. It's one of the best of the old classic 62 book series. I recommend it tremendously if you haven't read it. If you've kind of overlooked this book and kind of said, nah, I'm not really curious about that one, it kind of sounds dumb or bland, read it. If you like urban legend type stuff, this works really well. Mind you, this story is kind of predictable at the same time. It's not really like the most mind-boggling, shocking, twist-filled thing ever. It's more about the build-up to the finale, which again, the finale is a little bit predictable. You kind of know what's going to happen, especially if you're an adult reading this. But if you're a kid, it might not be that clever. Well, it might be more clever if you're younger. But somebody like myself, I'm a seasoned fan of horror and thriller and plot twists and all kinds of things. And the Twilight Zone has done enough to me in my life to show me that this is pretty predictable. But I loved it. I thought it was a really great book, honestly. It was very close to being a fantastic, perfect score for my review, but we'll get to that later on in the review. Let's Get Invisible. What is this book about? I really love, actually, the opening to the book. The concept is great, but I love the opening and the setting of the book. Basically, our main character is having his birthday party. It's a Saturday. It's rainy outside. How many birthday parties do you see in books, or like Goosebumps for that matter, that are like pouring rain outside? And he and a bunch of his friends and his little brother Lefty hang out. And at one point they end up making themselves all the way upstairs to the attic. And they happen to find out there's another door within the attic itself. Of course, in the attic there's a lot of things, since this was an old house of their grandparents, they have a lot of stuff that their grandparents had in that attic. I believe it was the grandparents. That there's stuff that they didn't know about, that have just been kind of chilling around up in the attic. They find this separate compartment, the separate room, whatever, and they end up going in there and they find this mirror, right? And above the mirror, there's actually like a little lamp light type thing. When you pull the string, it makes this really bright light, but apparently it can also turn you invisible if you're the person who was standing right in front of the mirror when that happened. Now, multiple people can go invisible at the same time, too. The thing with this, I don't want to tell you more than that, but I also worry that this is not enough to engage you as the viewer of this video, maybe somebody who's curious about the book. The book is a lot more than that, but the book is also kind of, it's possible you could say it's repetitive. It is 140 pages long. It's kind of one of the longer of the classic series. 140 pages is not long, but most of these books are like 115, 130 pages at most. So this is a little bit longer than your typical Goosebumps classic 62 book. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Again, there's this atmosphere and this eeriness and this urban legend feel to this story and this texture to it. And even though it can kind of get repetitive at times, this setting with the rain outside, which is not throughout the whole book or anything, but through that first scene where they first find this mirror and they start finding about it turning people invisible and stuff, the friends of that main character and the little brother Lefty all start to have like this idea for competitions to see who can remain being invisible longer, because it makes them feel weird when they are invisible. They almost feel like they're kind of starting to float for example. And that's as much as I want to tell you. I don't want to tell you anything else because I don't want to spoil it for you. I've already told you too much, probably, but the book just keeps going and going in the best possible way. Yeah, it might be a little bit repetitive to some readers. I saw some people on Goodreads saying it was a little repetitive. I don't think I feel that way. I think it was perfectly paced for what it was. The ending finale was not the best. Again, it's kind of predictable for older readers who are familiar with this kind of thing. If you're not familiar with this kind of genre, not so much middle grade horror or anything like that, but if you're familiar with kind of just plot twisty type stories, you probably already know the ending by the time you get to it. But I really enjoyed it regardless. It's kind of one of those books, I don't really like this expression. I think it's kind of a cheap, stupid Stephen King kind of knockout idea, knock-off idea of saying it's not about the ending, it's about the journey. Stephen King says that all the time. This is a great example of a book that even though I'm an adult and this is meant for a child's audience, that excuse works so well with this book. As an adult, talking about this book that I enjoyed so much, it really was about watching this stuff unfold. What I knew was going to happen, even though I've never read the book before, I've had this book all of my life, I've never read it, for whatever reason. I kind of regret it, honestly. It was pretty good. Not ever reading this, never seeing the TV show or anything, gave me a lot of chance to really kind of see this for the first time. I still predicted everything that was going to happen in it. So it's not the most intelligent book from Goosebumps, or even the classic series for that matter, but it was really well done, and it was really fun just to watch unfold in general. I had a good time. That's really the thing I ask for Goosebumps, is that I had a good time. Does the ending satisfy me? Yeah, I think it satisfies me, even though it's a little bit predictable. I think you can be predictable and also be satisfying at the same time. I enjoyed this. I had a really good time. I thought it was just fun. Really fun in general to read. It had a lot going for it. Again, this build-up and this atmosphere with the rainy day and the birthday party and all that stuff really added something in here. One of my favorite scenes in the book is when the two brothers, the main character and his brother, Lefty, the younger brother, go upstairs into the attic in front of the mirror at like midnight. It's not like anything really potentially scary happens there. Now, the ending does have some scary stuff in it that really got to me and actually kind of freaked me out a little bit, but that scene with the midnight thing, again, it was about atmosphere. It's just full-on atmosphere. This book maintains that so well throughout the entire read, I would say, even though it is predictable at times. So I recommend Let's Get Invisible tremendously. I think if you haven't read this book, you're really missing out. I feel like it almost, if you're reading the newer copies with the new cover art and all that, I feel like it almost kind of underwhelms me to think about how great this cover art is, how well this represents the actual story you're getting here, and how mysterious and odd the story is, compared to most Goosebumps books for that matter, whether it be back then or even now with the Slappy World series. And yet, it's extremely fun. extremely dark in a lot of ways. I like it a lot. I love it even, I would say. I do, in a lot of respects, I love this, especially the creepier parts towards the end of the book. I'm a little surprised that people don't talk about this book more. But again, I haven't seen the TV episode. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it kind of ruined people's expectations for this book, so they don't read it, they don't talk about it. I don't know, but this is one of the rare ones that got a reissue from the newer last 5 years or so, so there's got to be something good about it. I recommend it tremendously. If you haven't read this book before, check it out, especially if you love the old classic Goosebumps series. This is totally going to be for you. I think you'll love this a lot more than people give it credit for. If I had to rate Let's Get Invisible on a 5-star basis, I would give this a really high 4 out of 5 stars. I like it a lot. I think it's a really, again, I love the book. I think it's really great. I think if I was a younger reader that was not really exposed to things like The Twilight Zone and Tales from the Dark Side and all that growing up, I think I would have loved it and gave it a 5 out of 5. So if you're a younger reader and you want something really good, or you happen to have a kid that is getting into Goosebumps, or you want to get them into it, this is a fantastic place to start them out at. It's not something as iconic and baggage-worthy as like Not a Living Dummy. It's not something as scary as the first 2 Haunted Mask books. It's the perfect median, whatever, to start somebody off, whether it be a kid or an adult that's trying to get into this for the first time. Maybe you're showing your fiance at the age of like 16 or 17. This is a great place to start. I don't know about the TV episode. I plan on watching that, God willing, but this is really good. I like this a lot. Again, I loved it. It's a really solid read, a really fun read, a really spooky read, just unnerving in a lot of aspects, just because of the tension that builds. The tension is the big thing with this book that I enjoyed probably more than anything in it. It was a cool concept, though. I like this whole idea of this mirror. and that weird light above it. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Let's Get Invincible, whether it be this or whether it be the TV episode? Please don't spoil the TV episode for me yet. I'm going to try to go ahead and rewatch or watch it now for the first time and do a video on that. So we'll see how that turns out. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this book? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you think about my review? I'd love to hear that down below as well. Thank you for watching, folks. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.